Hi students, welcome back to the English class. Today's lesson is from your Hornbill book. The name of the lesson is We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together. The authors of the lesson are Gordon Cook and Alan East. Let's see about Gordon Cook. He was born on December 3, 1978 in Toronto. He was a two-time Canadian Olympic sailor. He sailed for the Royal Canadian Yacht Club. He was the son of Stephen Cook and Linda Cook, and he had a great interest in writing stories also. Alan East. He was admitted to the role of solicitors in 2003. Solicitor means lawyer. He has gained experience as a litigator, manager, and legal trainer. Litigator means lawyer handling civil cases. In 2010, Alan joined Coventry University as a senior lecturer in law. Finally, Alan is a co-founder of a multi-academy trust, that is Central Academies Trust, which has its aim improving standards in secondary education. Characters of the story. Narrator, Mary, the narrator's wife, Jonathan, narrator's son, Susan, narrator's daughter, American Larry Vigil, Swiss Herb Siegler. They were the crewmen hired by the narrator. Let's see the introduction of the story. It tells about the bravery and skill exhibited by Gordon Cook. Gordon Cook is the narrator of the story. Gordon Cook's family and crewmen in a war with water and the waves for existence. In the month of July in the year 1976, the narrator, his wife Mary, his son Jonathan and his daughter Susan set sail from Plymouth in England to duplicate the round-the-world journey made 2000 years ago by Captain James Cook. Duplicate means to do something that has already been done. Here, what has already been done? The round-the-world journey. Round the world means going round the world and returning to the place that you started from. Here, the narrator wanted to duplicate the round-the-world journey made 2000 years ago by Captain James Cook. They took the trip in their professionally designed ship named the Wave Walker, accompanied by two sailors, Larry Vigil, who was an American, and Herb Siegler, a Swiss, to tackle one of the world's coldest oceans, the Southern Indian Ocean. The initial stage of the 3-year-long journey was from Africa to Cape Town. It was pleasant. While heading east, along with the two newly hired crewmen, strong waves hit them and their survival became a question. The story tells about how they fought each day and survived till the end. Before getting into the lesson, let's see some nautical words which are used in the lesson. Nautical words means words related to ship or sailor or navigation. So here are the words: voyage, a sea journey, set sail, started a sea voyage, seafaring, traveling on the sea, wave walker, a 23-meter long boat, 30-ton wooden hulled beauty, crewmen, men working at the ship, gales, extremely strong winds. Mast, a tall pole in a ship that supports the sails. Jib, a small sail or a triangular stay sail. Knots, a nautical mile of 6080 feet. Mooring rope, rope with which a boat is fastened with a fixed object. Fastened means tied up. Stern, back end of the ship. Life raft, lifeboat. Oil skins, waterproof coverings. Crest, top. Deck, roof of the ship. Boom, bar or long pole. Hatch, a door in the deck of a ship. Timbers, pieces of wood. Overboard, on the ship. Starboard, right side of the ship. Forestay sail, the front big sail of the ship. Dinghies, small open boats. Anchor, a heavy metal object dropped over the side of a ship to keep it in one place. Bunk, a sleeping berth in a ship. Canvas, a rough cloth. Mayday calls, SOS signals for help. SOS, save our souls. Rib frames, frames of wood. Keel, a long piece of wood or steel along the bottom of a ship which helps it to keep upright. Rib, one of the ship's curved timbers. Curved timbers means long, narrow timbers. Steering, the mechanism by which one controls the direction of a ship. Planks, long, flat pieces of timber. Rigging, ropes that balance the mast of the ship. Sextant, an instrument for measuring angles and distances. Hull, frame. Offshore, near the shore. Compass, an instrument with magnetized needle for telling direction. Let's see the lesson elaborately. The narrator, 37-year-old businessman, along with his wife Mary and two children, Jonathan, 6 years old, and Susan, 7 years old, went on a voyage on their ship in July 1976. They started from Plymouth, England. They wanted to complete the sea trip around the world just like the one that had been completed 2000 years ago by the famous Captain James Cook. The narrator and his wife spent 16 years improving their seafaring skills. Seafaring means regularly traveling by sea. They got a ship built professionally, a 23-meter long, 30-ton heavy wooden hull called Wave Walker. The name of the ship is Wave Walker. So wooden hulled means a watertight body of a ship. They took several months to test it in the roughest of weathers. The initial stage of the 3-year-long journey of 105,000 km passed pleasantly. They sailed down the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. Before heading towards the east, the narrator hired 2 crewmen to tackle the roughest sea, the southern Indian Ocean. Their names were Larry Vigil, an American, and Herb Siegler, a Swiss. On the second day in Cape Town, they encountered a strong wind. They faced a strong wind which continued for several weeks. A strong wind was not a problem, but 15 meters high waves, which were the height of the mast, worried the narrator. On December 25, they had travelled 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town. They celebrated Christmas together despite the bad weather. The weather remained the same till New Year's Day, but they hoped for it to change soon. But the weather condition became worse than before. On the early morning of January 2, the waves were very huge. They were sailing with a small storm jib at a speed of 8 knots. Knots means a unit of speed equal to 1 nautical mile per hour, used especially of ships, aircraft or winds. When the ship was sailing with the huge waves, they could see the huge sea in front of them. The noise of the waves and strong winds was painful for the ears. They dropped the storm jib to slow down the ship and hit a heavy mooring rope across the back part of the ship in a loop. They lashed everything. They hit everything with double force. They put on their oilskins and life jackets, attached lifelines, and went through the life raft drills and waited. Around 6 p.m., an unpleasant silence rolled over. It was an indication of a disaster which was about to happen. The wind suddenly dropped and the sky was darker with heavy clouds. A huge cloud was coming towards the stern of the ship. Huge cloud was coming towards the back end of the ship, but later the narrator realized that it was a huge wave. The wave was perfectly vertical and it was twice the height of the previous waves they saw from the top of the wave, looking unpleasant due to its height. The thunder increased and the wave moved the stern up. That means the back end of the ship was moved up. They thought that it would not do any damage, but a huge explosion vibrated the roof of the ship, vibrated the deck. A strong moving stream of green and white water broke over the ship. The narrator's head smashed in the wheel. The narrator's head broke in the wheel of the ship. He flew overboard and sank below the waves. He accepted that his death was approaching and started losing his consciousness. He felt quite peaceful. The narrator's head popped out of water. Suddenly, the narrator's head came out of water. The ship was about to overturn, but a wave turned him upright. His lifeline jacket was stretched. He grabbed the guard rails. He grabbed a bar at the edge and sailed to the ship's main pole. The waves tossed him around the deck. The waves tossed him around the roof. He was injured as his left ribs cracked, his mouth filled with blood, and he had a broken tooth. He found the wheel. Then he faced the stern for the next wave and waited. He faced, stern means back part of the ship. He faced the stern for the next wave and he waited to face it. There was water everywhere. The narrator could feel water below the ship, but he didn't leave the wheel alone. Suddenly, the front door opened and his wife Mary came. She was screaming that they were sinking. She said, "The decks are smashed. We are full of water." The narrator handed her the wheel and climbed towards the door. The crewmen Larry and Herb were pumping the water very fast. The timbers of the ship, the woodboards of the ship, were broken and were hanging badly. The starboard of the ship had sunk. That means the side of the ship had sunk. Cloths, crockery, charts, tins, and toys were roaming around in deep water. The narrator swam and crawled to the children's cabin and asked the children whether they were all right. The children replied, "Yes." Susan, his daughter, complained about a big bump on her head, a big swell on her head. The narrator did not pay much attention to it as his major concern was to save them. The narrator found screws, hammer, and canvas. Then he went back to the deck. The broken starboard side was letting so much water in. The starboard side was broken. Now the water was flowing inside. If the narrator could not fix the problem, if the narrator could not settle the problem, they would all sink in the sea. The narrator stretched the canvas cloth. He straightened the canvas cloth and secured the waterproof hatch. Hatch means door, which covered the gaping holes. Some water streamed below. That means some water flew below and some was now turned over the side. The hand pump was blocked as rubbish was floating around the cabins and entered it. The electric pump short-circuited. As the water level rose, the narrator found 2 hand pumps had been removed along with a rope, jib, a small boat, and the main anchor. He found another electric pump under the chart room. He connected it to an outpipe and it started working. The whole night went with pumping out the water, steering the wheel, and working the radio. There were no replies to their signals sent over the radio as they were in the remotest part of the world. Susan's head was now more swollen and she had two black eyes with a deep cut in her arm. When she was asked why she didn't tell him about her injuries earlier, she said that she did not want to worry him as he was trying to save all of them. The water level was under control by the morning of January 3. So all of them took 2 hours rest in rotation. But still there was a leak somewhere below the waterline. Upon checking, the boat rib structure was badly broken down till the base of the ship. The whole section of the starboard was held together with a few cupboard partitions. The ship's condition was so sad that it would not make it till Australia. The narrator checked the charts and calculated that there were 2 small islands a few kilometers to the east. One of them was Isle Amsterdam, which was a French scientific base. Their only hope was to search and reach that island, but only if the wind and the sea do not cause further damage. Otherwise, there was no chance for them to reach the island. The wave had destroyed the ship's auxiliary engine. After 36 hours of continuous pumping, on January 4, the water was only a few centimeters left to be pumped out. But they still had to pump out the water which was coming in. They could not set sail on the main mast. They hoisted the storm jib, that means canvas, and sailed towards the 2 small islands. They had their first meal in 2 days, some corned beef and cracker biscuits found by Mary. The rest period was short-lived as black clouds built up around 4 p.m. The wind was now 40 knots and the sea was getting higher. The weather got worse and by the early morning of January 5, the situation was bad. When the narrator went to comfort his children, his son asked him whether they were going to die. He tried to assure him that they would make it. His son replied that they were not afraid to die till they all were together. Children, this is the line spoken by the narrator's son, Jonathan. It is the title of the lesson. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together. So this line, these words filled the narrator with a determination to fight back. He made efforts to protect the weakened starboard side. He used an improvised sea anchor made of heavy nylon rope and the 2 22-liter plastic barrels of kerosene. That same evening, the narrator and his wife sat holding hands and they believed that their end was near. The ship made it through the storm and by the morning of January 6, the narrator tried to get reading on an instrument named sextant. That means it is an instrument with a graduated arc of 60 degrees for taking altitudes and navigation. He worked with wind speeds, drift, that means movement, and current, that is rising and falling of the sea. Then he calculated their position. They were in 150,000 kilometers area of ocean. They were looking for a 65 kilometer wide island. While the narrator was still thinking, his daughter Sue joined him and she was in pain. The left side of her head was swollen and her blackened eyes had narrowed down to slits. She gave him a card which she had made herself. On the front of the card was a cartoon image of her parents with words written about them being funny people and how they made her laugh. On the inside of the card, she told them how she loved them both and she thanked them. This made the narrator realize that they had to make it to the island. The narrator rechecked his calculation. They lost their main compass and were using a spare one which was not corrected for magnetic variation. So he guessed the influence of the westerly currents, that means movement of water, which flow through the Indian Ocean. Around 2 p.m., he went on deck. He went to the roof and asked Larry to steer the wheel to 185 degrees. He felt if they were lucky, they would see the island by 5 p.m. Then he went below and slept. He woke up around 6 p.m. and it was dark outside. He thought that they might have missed the island. He started worrying about how they would tackle the westerly wind more as the ship wasn't capable to sail more. His son came and asked him for a hug, and his daughter followed. He asked that why was he getting a hug. His son replied that he was the best daddy in the world and also called him the best captain. The narrator replied that he was afraid. Susan told him that they had found the island, which was as big as a battleship. The narrator rushed to the deck, that means rushed to the roof, and gave a sigh of relief. They could see the complete outline of Isle Amsterdam. There was a bleak piece of volcanic rock in front of them. Bleak piece means it is an area of land lacking vegetation. But it had a little vegetation. It was the most beautiful island in the world. They moved the ship, that means they tied up the ship at some distance from the shore, and the next morning 28 inhabitants of the Amsterdam island helped them to move on the shore of the land. As he felt the land again on his feet, he thought of his crewmen and his wife. He also thought of his 7-year-old daughter who was injured badly. She had to go through 6 minor operations to remove the blood clot in her head. His son, who never gave up and was not afraid to die. The narrator. The narrator was a 37-year-old businessman. He proved as a great captain and father during the challenging and trying times after the irreparable damage done to Wavewalker by his composure and wits. Composure means presence of mind and wits means intelligence. It won't be wrong to say that all the lives on the boat could be saved just because of his seafaring skills. Mary. She was the narrator's wife. She was a courageous and brave woman. She stood by her husband after the wave badly damaged the boat. She steered the boat according to her husband's instructions. She gave lots of emotional support to the narrator. Susan. She was the narrator's 7-year-old daughter. She was brave. She was critically injured at the time the huge wave struck the boat. Her eyes were terribly swollen because of the head injury. There was cut on her arm also. However, she did not cry. She repeatedly told her father that she was all right. The truth was she was not. She had to undergo 6 minor operations to remove the blood clotting from her brain. Jonathan. He was Gordon Cook's 6-year-old son who had accompanied him on the round-the-world journey. After the Wavewalker was terribly broken by the colossal wave, he also behaved very courageously. Colossal wave means huge wave. He gave a new strength to his father when he said he was not afraid to die if he could be together with the family. These words filled the author with a new determination and courage. He resolved to fight till the end to save his family from being drowned in the stormy sea. Larry Vigil and Herb Siegler. They were two professional sailors whom the narrator hired at Cape Town to tackle one of the world's roughest seas, the Southern Indian Ocean. They proved to be real saviors when the ship had been flooded with the seawater. They pumped like madmen to keep water level reasonably low. Themes of the lesson: element of luck. So, in this story, the author and his family members and the crewmen, they were all in a dreadful situation, but at the end, they came alive. Faith in one's optimism, not despairing hope even in difficult circumstances, and sharp presence of mind. So the narrator and his family members, they had a positive attitude and they did not give up their hope. And the author used his presence of mind in the hazardous situation. Instrumental qualities of a captain which proved journey successful even after strong hurdles. So they lost their compass. Even though they lost their compass, they were using the spare one which was not corrected for magnetic variations. Human nature of knowing and taking on challenges. In the hazardous situation, they fought with the storm. Human instinct of survival, then human bravery, grit, courage, unity and determination, which in this story is exhibited even by small children. Moral of the lesson. The most important lesson that we learn from such hazardous experiences when we are face to face with death is not to lose hope under any circumstances. Even though we are in danger, we should not lose hope. At times, life presents very dire situations, but if one is optimistic about finding a solution and overcomes the odds, one will always be successful. So sometimes life presents very terrible and dreadful situation. If we are optimistic, if we have a positive attitude, we can find a solution and we can overcome the hurdles and finally we will be successful. Let's see the message we get from the lesson. The positive attitude and endurance shown by the courageous family of the author in the face of the storm that had endangered their survival. Even though the storm threatened them, the family members of the author, they had the positive attitude and tolerance to cope up the terrible situations. Let's see the summary of the story. The story tells about the extreme bravery and skill exhibited by Gordon Cook. Gordon Cook's family and crewmen in a war with water and the waves for existence. In the month of July in the year 1976, the writer, his wife Mary, his son Jonathan and his daughter Susan set sail from Plymouth in England to duplicate the round-the-world journey made 200 years ago by Captain James Cook. They took the trip in their professionally designed ship named the Wave Walker, accompanied by two sailors, Larry Vigil, who was an American, and Herb Siegler, a Swiss, to tackle one of the world's coldest oceans, the Southern Indian Ocean. The first portion of the journey, that is about 105,000 kilometers up to Cape Town, passed off very enjoyably. On the second day out of Cape Town, they started to encounter strong windstorms. Windstorms did not worry about the narrator, but the height of the waves was alarming, up to 15 meters above, that was as high as the mainmast. On the 25th of December, The writer's ship reached the southern Indian Ocean that was about 3,500 kilometers to the east of Cape Town. The family welcomed the new year on the ship. At the dawn of 2nd January, the waves were huge in size. Unfriendly weather and massive waves forced the sailors to slow the speed of the ship. They dropped the storm jib and they took various other precautions. The risk was so obvious that the sailors accomplished a life raft drill, attached the lifeline boats and the life jackets. Unexpectedly, at 6 p.m., a terrific explosion shook the wave walker and the writer was thrown overboard. The wave walker was about to overturn when another massive wave hit it and throwing it upright one more time. The writer was thrown back again on the deck. His head and ribs were smashing, touching the walls of the wave walker. In spite of a lot of injuries, the writer took charge of the situation and decided to handle it on his own. Larry and Herb started pumping out water from the ship. The author somehow managed to cover the canvas across the gaps to stop the water from entering into the ship. Moreover, their hand pumps stopped functioning and the electric pumps short-circuited at the same time. Luckily, the writer found a spare electrical pump that was in a working condition. The entire night, everyone was pumping, steering, repairing, and sending radio signals for help. The author checked the charts and found that Isle Amsterdam, a French scientific base, was their last hope. Sue and John got heavily injured, but they were not afraid to die if they were all together. Sue's head got swelling and she was having a deep injury. Moreover, the writer became extra determined to see the courage of his children. Finally, they were able to touch Isle Amsterdam. It was a volcanic island where 28 inhabitants were ready to receive them. We can say the collective power of unity and the never-failing confidence of the sailors made it possible for them to survive and come out from the jaws of death. That's the end of the lesson. Thank you, children, for watching this video.